I think we are going to begin. Well, hello and welcome back to the summit, to the afternoon session. As you know, my name is Frank Findley. I'm the executive director, and I have a great honor today. I get to present the Universal Marketing Dictionary project report. So the UMD is one of our longest standing projects. It was done very early on. David Stewart mentioned it earlier today, how one of the first questions that came up was, hey, we can't even agree upon the language in our industry. And so that was what MASB set their mind to do, is to actually resolve that issue. And they did it in a very unique way. What they did is they came in and to eliminate the ambiguity and terminology between functions within and across firms, they brought together a group of people called curators, dictionary curators. And they got the industry associations to take all of our disparate glossaries and come together and unify them in one location and have the curators go through it. It was a 3-year process just to go through the initial definitions. During this process, they also reached out to other people, and I know Neil Bendel from the book Marketing Metrics. They actually allowed us to use material from their book. And other sources that have come in over time to actually keep up the dictionary, keep it fresh. But the biggest thing is we want the correct definitions in the dictionary. We want, when people go out there, that they'll know they can go and they'll see a term in media and they'll be able to Google it and they'll be able to come to the dictionary and actually see that term. So that's really what our main goal of the dictionary is to eliminate this ambiguity. So we have a really great project team. There are two different levels of the project team. There are the curators who are led by Paul Ferris and John Gasky of Darden and University of Notre Dame, respectively. And they work tirelessly to go over the lexicon, and they meet monthly as a project team with the other curators who are Dave Reepstein of Wharton, Todd Kaiser of Fuel Cycle, Alan Coos of the MAP Center. Alan was our former executive director of MASB, actually, but he's very active on this team still. And Brian Hamilton represents measurement providers from Double Check Advertising. So that's the core body of the curators who manages this process. And then there are experts who come in and assist them on various topics. So we are now, we've done this informally. So every time there's been some question about a term, what we would do is we would actually go out and we would find the expert on that term. And then we would bring them in to get their information, and we'll bring in multiple experts, for example. But now what the team is doing most recently is actually getting a list of experts in a given field and then going out to them specifically directly and saying, okay, here's this term, here are the questions that have come up about it, let's resolve this, let's go through the process. So they're leading the process, but now we're bringing in this consort of experts on different topics. So, you know, whether it be distribution, whether it be various aspects of digital, that's how they're going. So if you yourself or you know of someone who you think would be a fantastic person to add to as an expert list, please let us know because we'll bring them on. The more the merrier when it comes to these sorts of things. And then additionally, there's the MASB staff. There's Eric Decker-Hoppin, who actually, sorry about that, turn it off, who is our communications director here at MASB. And so he actually spends a lot of time on communicating and getting the word out about terms and getting people excited about our marketing terms. We have such a rich history, we want to leverage that going into the future. And then of course, Joanna and I as well. I play more of a project lead role, and Joanna helps bring in the people. She's one of our lead people going out there and bringing in the experts. So I would be remiss if I didn't really thank the CMD endorsers or the UMD endorsers. We had a name change historically from Common Language Marketing Dictionary to Universal Marketing Dictionary. But the original endorsers were the AMA, the ANA, and the MSI. And so we really appreciate everything that they've come and partnered with to make the dictionary happen. So if you've never been out to the dictionary, I really encourage you to do so. You have all those wonderful handheld computer devices. You can go out to marketing-dictionary.org directly, and you will see the term. I'm muted all the way, but I still ring. You'll see all the terms out there. You can go in and navigate the dictionary. So it's a wonderful resource accordingly. And you'll see I'll get to the middle portion here where you see these summer games. I'll get to that in a bit. But you'll also find fun stuff on there. We like to keep things enjoyable. So marketing-dictionary.org. We also will encourage all the professors here for your students to ask them, you can put in your syllabi, to actually go out and go to the dictionary and use those terms when they do papers. We also have had success with editors of journals also in the review process, asking, when people submit definitions, they'll ask back, hey, is that from the marketing dictionary? What's your source for that term? Accordingly. So we've had a lot of success in the journal article side. If you've never seen the definition, it's structured similarly to this. This is the moribund effect. You'll see at the top there's a definition of it, which is short. We tried to keep it to 3 paragraphs, but as Dave mentioned, if there are multiple uses for a term, and there are a lot of terms that have both a traditional marketing aspect and then a digital marketing aspect, and they're used differently, and so we have to bring that together. But you'll see the definition itself, and then you'll see the references from where that derives, and then we also have been adding in multimedia content. What the multimedia content does, it allows us to put a longer form definition. In this case, we have Kevin Lane Keller, who's one of the people who coined the term moribund effect, giving an explanation of the history of it and what it means and why it's important. So we bring in images, we bring in multimedia, and that not only gives more information, but it gives information in a form that a lot of younger people, for example, on the video side, prefer to consume the information. It also gives us higher rankings on all the search engines. So in the last year, we had over 350,000 visitors to the dictionary site. So 350,000 people have come to the dictionary to look up terms. So that's not page views, that's visitors, deduped. But these are just the tip of the iceberg as far as what the dictionary provides. You can see we have the site visitors above the waterline, and then underneath we have that huge portion of the iceberg. Those are the outside dictionary interactions. Well, how do we have outside dictionary interactions? Well, we have the marketingdictionary.org, which is in market, but we also have social media aspects. So LinkedIn, the things that we do, our earned media, LinkedIn, Twitter, those sorts of things. But the biggest portion on the outside side comes from the search engines and online references. If you go to Google, for example, and as this example here is, and type in, what did I choose? Industrial products definition, you will see the Universal Marketing Dictionary come up as the term for that. So we are considered authoritative by Google and by Bing, Yahoo, and the other search engines. And you'll also see many of our definitions are actually brought into Wikipedia and other of the encyclopedia format. They'll actually take the term and then they'll cite us on the backside. So what does that mean? Well, we can actually look just, for example, at Google itself. Just in July, we had our definition showed up and were viewable in over 2 million impressions. So over 2 million times our definitions show up on those lists and they see them. So we are getting, for search impressions, we're getting, in July, we had greater than 2 million visits. We had 51,000, 52,000 visits, and visitors, we had 22,000 visitors. So interesting enough, most people who come to the site, they'll go through multiple pages. Some of it is going through the index. Like, for example, some people will click through, B to get to brand, and so on. But it's really amazing because we have cross links within the definitions. So a good portion of the additional on the visit size versus the visitors is them cross linking to other related definitions. So they may come in for one term and we'll point them out to another term. I'm sorry, my chart is not displaying here perfectly, but if you look at the by the different types of impressions on Google, you'll see on web is the majority of them, but you see that images have grown quite substantially. So in July, we had 243,000 images from the dictionary that came through the search impression, and then 1,735 on the video side. So that is that information. Now, here's another definition. This is from on search engines. This is Bing, to give you a greater view. So you might think, well, if they don't click through, then there's no value. The truth of the matter is that we got kind of a problem from an analytics standpoint, a marketing analytics standpoint, because so much of our definition is actually delivered via the search engine. It actually discourages people from actually coming through. So if you come here to growth rating points on Bing, you'll see the growth rating point is the term used in advertising to measure the size of an audience or total amount of exposures reached by a specific media vehicle. So you'll see our definition there come through, and that's really what what most people are looking for. But they can actually click through to see more, to get the how you do the calculations and things of that nature. And then even things like, for example, related terms like targeting rating point and so on, that information is being coming through into the Bing search engine and being structured accordingly. So they're actually taking our dictionary and using it, and structuring it into the search engine. So in many ways, people don't go through to the dictionary because they get the term right there in the actual search stream. Now, we have one huge challenge going on right now. Of course, we're all facing it with AI. We mentioned it earlier today. Well, AI is being applied by these search engines now. And as of 2 weeks ago, Bing AI has now brought in the dictionary. So the Universal Marketing Dictionary is now accessible through the Bing AI platform. And the challenge that we're having is that our curated definition is no longer going through in a pure form. So it's not our form that's coming up. What it's doing is it's pulling from different sources, and it's actually combining them together into a new amalgamated definition. So you see it here, a growth rating point is a measurement of size and impacts of advertising campaign. Well, here's the problem. The GRP is not a measure of the impact of an advertising campaign. It is a measure of the first part of that, the size of the campaign, the audience reached. That came from another source. And so the AI is going out there and it's pulling in information from other sources and doing it. But then notice what gets cited at the bottom half when you look at learn more. You'll see what's the first thing that you see there cited. It's the marketing dictionary. So it gives the cachet of being, it gives the view that this definition is primarily coming from the marketing dictionary, when in fact it's being other sources are coming in. And so we don't know how to resolve this yet. In fact, this whole concept of combining together, Dave Stewart could probably talk to 4 hours on it, because we've had conversations that probably lasted that long. We're not sure of what the end game is there, or what we're going to do, but it's basically unwinding portions of our curation as of now. So the AI needs to have some kind of weighting system or some kind of mechanism in these type of cases to get back to the authoritative source. And so we're not sure exactly how that's going to play out. Of course, it's early time, and of course it is voluntary for people to use, but it does give you kind of one of the warning of this mix. Yeah.
You're experiencing it, but so do a lot of other people. And really good illustration, AI goes out, takes copyrighted material, finds it, makes use of it, in many cases makes commercial use of it. And it has raised all manner of interesting legal questions. And so we will be in courts for a while.
Yeah, not MASB per se necessarily, but overall, this topic will be.
One thing that I thought the way an LLM actually operates in a situation like that is not unlike SEO. So the more pages of SEO content you have being searched, that is going to shift your ranking, right? There is a similar, not exact, but a similar dynamic that's going on with LLMs, and it's already spurring a huge amount of largely AI generated content to not only dominate the LLM search, but also to deposition competitive understandings, right? And so the short-term way to potentially resolve this would be to generate a lot more LLM-ready content. So this is content that's not necessarily, like SEO, not necessarily for direct human eyeball consumption, right? It's optimized for these searches, right? And so just something to put up.
Yeah, the difficulty for us is that from an SEO perspective, we're highly optimized because, the marketing, so just talking about this application, not overall, a very good point. But for this application, we tend to be in the top few definitions that will come up for all the different terms. And so many times we're the primary, the first unsponsored term. So even in that situation, I mean, these are terms where, we are number one. Sometimes we'll have three parts of our definitions will be on that first page. And even in that situation, we're seeing this view. And so but the point is well taken, is that we are writing right now a lot to the old world of SEO optimization, because the way people would get to the site primarily was through the search engine. Maybe there is something there where we have to learn to go through to write to the AI algorithms, if you will.
I feel like a one interesting thing that I was reviewing as an investor, buyer apps. So these are mainly enterprise, B2B enterprise buyer apps, where procurement and marketing and whoever has an interest in buying whatever it is, issues prompts into the buyer app to essentially specify what they need. And the app goes out and says, okay, here's a long list, a short list, and this is the one you ought to pick, right? It is sucking off of the same kind of situation that's driving this.
Yep.
And so there's already documented examples where not only are companies playing the content sourcing game, the LLMs, to benefit themselves directly, but also that for the first time, this is really the first time that anybody's ever been aware of it, where people are creating content to deposition competitors, right? To shove them down further down the LLM choice list. And, none of this is transparent to human eyes, right? So it's just going to be interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be an evolving situation, and I think we're going to learn a lot over the next year. We have a big data team within MASB who's this is part of the focus that's under it, and so I think that we'll take this challenge. But the good part is we have a resource where we can actually see how the algorithm playing, because again, we get millions and millions of impressions. We can actually see how this plays out on our own site, and we know the source material completely. So Matt, did you have something?
I was curious about how often definitions are being updated, because we've also been experiencing with some of our journal content, folks will post a pre-accepted article, they'll post an article that's just been accepted, and then when it finally gets published, they're three relatively similar but different, and boy, I mean, ChatGPT has been having a field day over that, right? Because it's three different papers. It's almost competing with one's own idea. And so it's been sort of interesting. So I'm curious how often definitions are being changed as a result, because I feel like these tools are going to have the same.
Yeah, so what's happening is when those new definitions come out, we usually get notified. So, so there'll be some question about it, and we'll get it through the marketing dictionary. And then we'll take it back to the team, and the team will look at what the suggestion was or what the source was that they were citing, and we'll look. So that will happen within a month or two. Is about the time frame where that will get re-reviewed, and then a decision will be made to put it on the docket or not. Sometimes they'll just say, this article just has it wrong. We'll just reply back directly, and the curators will say this is the meaning of the term. In those cases, because what they're doing is they're also looking at a lot of the major marketing texts, as well as the journal definitions, as well as the ISO standard definitions. And so they're looking across these different sources. And so what they'll say at this point is they'll say, look, the authoritative sources are using it this way. This is more of a coined expression off of it, and they won't do it. Or if it's being really popular, more popular, and it's come up multiple times, they'll actually put in the dictionary, but they'll actually have that it's a coin term, or this is a new emerging use of it. So the answer is that within a couple months of when we get notified or we're aware of it, then it's going into the review process for them to look at it. All right, yeah, Patel.
Thinking that is the team going to take some 10 definitions like this and compare what's going on? I'm thinking of if we take 10 concepts, 10 terms, and go through ChatGPT and Bard or whatever, and see what they say, and do some kind of test to see how correspondent they are and where are they missing.
Oh, yeah, that's an interesting idea. Yeah, because right now I've been looking mostly through the Bing AI because that one just came active, and so it immediately started impacting us. But that's a good point. The other thing that from this application, the two ways besides the information aspect in this Kangbami, the other side is that with these models that are being used, these AI models, generative content, they're actually giving much bigger portions. So before, where it might be in the search engine 2 or 3 sentences, now we're seeing on these instances, sometimes we're seeing the entire definition appearing directly in the search. So it would be good. We should go through the different models. We should take that. We'll take that back to the big data team. So Patel is on the big data team, so we could definitely do that. And of course, in Wikipedia is kind of an interesting fellow as well, if you've ever used it, because they will take the full definition, put in Wikipedia, and then just put the small citation at the bottom, with the link. So that's kind of an interesting, another example of that. I do want to point out the marketing term of the week. This is something that's really incredible. Every week there is a term which is chosen from the dictionary that gets sent out, and both through email list distribution for people who have signed up, but also through our social media channels. And in it, we go through the definitions to kind of, if you will, prime the well. One, to get awareness of the dictionary, but two, there are some really interesting terms that that might be forgotten or not used as much, and so we use that. And so if you have an idea for a quiz question, where usually it's put in the form of a quiz, you can actually send that to the dictionary at themasb.org, and Eric will take that up and work his magic. But more recently, the team has been looking at a variety of different approaches to doing the marketing term of the week. Some of it has to do with popular news articles. So if there's a news article out there that something's really hot in the news and it's using a marketing term, we'll grab that article and and put it with the definition to let people know. So one that we saw spike was boycott, B-U-Y-C-O-T-T, which is the kind of the opposite of boycott term, and so we were able to do that. But these are other ways of doing it, where every so often we'll do something gamification of it. So you'll have over here, a crossword kind of puzzle. You can see the scrambled letter type of puzzle, and so you can look in and say, what's the outcome of a purchase decision making? And so for that first one, and it would be choice. And so you can, it gets you and it gets working the mind, and it's a fun way to get people involved in understanding our common terms. So at the end, we're going to do a quiz. We're going to give you guys a sheet of these, and we'd like to. No, we're not. As far as countries, our dictionary is English-based, which we've actually had many discussions about expanding it. But it's kind of funny in our investigations of it. in most use, these terms are actually used as the term itself in the language. So you might, have someone speaking Mandarin or reading Mandarin, and then they'll have the English term in it. So a lot of the terms are already on the marketing side, on the English side. And the other one is that the one thing that the AIs have gotten good at is translating things. So we looked at some, translations from English to other languages, and people say, yeah, this is pretty good. We did a lot of that in the ISO work. In fact, Edgar was actually over the definitions team for ISO TC 289, so he knows all about this type of thing. Going in multiple languages. So you'll see that the majority of our visitors, this is for July, come from the United States and India, two of the largest English-speaking countries. But you'll see these other countries where English is a second language are actually prominent, and so you'll see, but you'll see that obviously the English influence right now. Recent top terms to give you a kind of thing, because it's kind of neat we can actually see trends in the dictionary when things are going on. And if you know, in our last summit, we actually reported that we just started seeing inflation, like terms like buy one, get one, BOGO, start to move up. I think it was somewhere towards the bottom of the list. So it's first column is from top, and then you can see the numbers, but in the second column is below that. But believe it or not, buy one, get one now has become the third most popular term in July. And so you see everything in the green there are these price, inflation, shortage related terms. And those are what the news articles are talking about. Variety Store had a huge run up here recently. And if you go to the news, go Google News and look at Variety Store, you'll see the term is used a lot. So we'll see that, or you'll see that come up. Sweepstakes has just made it on here. And then on the other side of it, you have the standard terms, which are in black, like things like, for example, the media terms, gross rating points, target rating points, idea screening, those media channel rating, customer and brand, those just are kind of staples. They're kind of like, they're there all the time, and they're the basis of what we talk about. When we get together, we talk about brand, and we talk about marketing, and we talk about customer. Those are the most stable term. And then recently we've seen a jump in what we call market structure or life cycle and role terms. For example, family life cycle and the rollout of products. And this is corresponding with a lot of the path to purchase type work and segmentation type work, which has been heavied up within the associations in recent conferences. So that has come to the top. But then we have the strangest one of all. Television, for the first time in the history of our dictionary, has made our recent top terms. So people are going out there searching television. Now, you may think that's funny, but the truth of the matter is there's a lot of question about what television means anymore, right? And so this is a term, example of a term that we're going to have to grapple with, because is television, you have on the air, you have, there's different types, linear TV. We have a whole thing in the dictionary of all kinds of TV related terms, but the term itself, television, is YouTube television. If people are consuming, is, any of those type Instagram videos, Facebook now video, Twitter now videos, Twitch streams, what is meant by television anymore. So that's one that we're really, I think is going to evolve. So Matt, to your point, that's probably one that's going to really come up on the top and get reviewed. So what are some of the latest new and revised terms? I'm not going to click through these, but you'll know that they're there in the dictionary, so you can do it. Generative AI was one that we had to really get in front of. That was one that just, we've had artificial intelligence for quite a while in there, but the idea of, we started getting queries, what's the difference between AI and generative AI? And so generative AI was added in there, and that went right along with personalized marketing because that was the context. So we actually had to add in personalized marketing, which wasn't there. Big data, which we'll talk about here in a moment on a session, is another top term. Boycott and boycott. I don't know why those were important. Why those had to be recently revised, but they had to be. I think Jim will fill us in on that a little later here. And then opportunity cost is one, and I think and you'll be speaking to that as well. So these are some of the hot terms, and so give you a kind of a view of we look at what's going on and what the conversation is, and we make sure that the terms are fitting into that conversation. We revise accordingly. And I would like to say that marketing terms matter. because there are a lot of news reporting on our industry, some of it not in too flattering of a light. And part of the reason why is because they don't understand the terms. They don't understand different aspects of it. And so it does matter. These terms do matter. So you can see those terms, they're in the headlines, right? Oh, look at boycott. There's a boycott on over here. So these are in the news media, and it's important not only for us as practitioners, but just for the general public as a whole to be able to understand what those terms mean. So what are the hot terms on the review docket? Well, one of the things that we have is the 10 characteristics of an ideal metric. MASB has a system called the MAP, the Marketing Metric Accountability Protocol, where we work with with measurement providers primarily, but sometimes with marketers, to take their processes and they open their books to us and we review the claims that they make, and also they're tied to finance. And then we give a report out that kind of screens it from any of their IP having to go out the door. But basically, we're giving an independent third party, a non-objective view of whether or not they were substantiated, those claims were substantiated. And so in that, we have 10 characteristics. They do things like transparent, predictive, calibrated, you get the idea. And we've had definitions for those for a while. But recently there has come forward the idea of let's give examples. Because when you have something like simple, well, what do you mean by simple? Can you give us an example of simple? And so the dictionary team, the curators have been spending a good amount of time coming up with examples, and they're about halfway through the 10 characteristics now. If you go out there, you'll find actual marketing metrics that they give it examples to try to clarify those terms better. Stewardship is in sustainable marketing. These ESG terms as applied to marketing, that is a tough one to articles because they are used in so many different manners. It's difficult to actually come forward, and really the ISO standards and the other standard boards haven't caught up with it. So it's kind of interesting. There are a lot of terms that are being used, but in a marketing context, but there really isn't, a firm thinking about that yet. So those are the more difficult ones for the curators to complete the terms on, but they're being worked on. So there are some good ones. There are some older terms like goods, service, dominant, where some of the underlying theory is in question, if you will. And so there's some question about, do you put those in a historical context, given new recent data, or how do we handle that within the dictionary? And then some other ones, as you can see over here as well, that has to do with the process of how we go about it. We expect to have, when we go into a marketing organization project team, and I should mention all of our project teams, when they're working on, they come for definitions which are not in the dictionary. They come forward accordingly. As Karen can attest from on sponsorship. How many do we have to add for sponsorship? A lot. For whatever reason, the sponsorship part of marketing was not well represented in the traditional glossaries. And so we have to come forward and bring a good amount of terms forward from them.
Some of our publishing and stuff, because it's just like, we're using the term to mean this, but let's make sure that we're consistent with what the dictionary is saying so that we're not tripping over ourselves. And it also begs the question, then why aren't these terms there? So another reason to close that.
So like an extreme example of this problem would be the actual definition, mathematical or statistical definition of attribution versus the way marketers use it. The way marketers use it is totally wrong.
Yeah.
Right? So how are you thinking about how to navigate that?
Sometimes when there are a general, what you might call a rigorous, and then a more of a coin term, we'll actually put both in there, meanings in there, and cite them with corresponding sources. So if there's ever a question about a definition where it's like, well, it's popularly used as this, you'll go to dictionary, you'll see some things. Popularly, this is used for this, though that's not, the primary definition or the academic definition or the standard definition. So that's kind of how the dictionary used it. It tries to incorporate those very popular phrases, accordingly. And we try to reference back. For example, there was a point where screenagers was a generational term, very heavily used. and book associated with it and so on. And so, but then people grabbed onto it and were using it outside the context of the originating context. So we had to go in there and say, screenagers is a term which represents this generation for this reason, and originally it comes from this book, and now it's being more broadly used as, these individuals. So there's kind of a clarification role that we can play in the dictionary.
One is being misrepresented as the other. Do you have plans to actually distinguish this and say, this is correct, this is widely used but incorrect?
Yeah, just ambiguity. You'll see that, for example, on the GRP side, where there are some terms in the dictionary where it actually will say this is misused. I don't know for on the attribution side specifically on that one. I don't think it is. Yeah, I don't think it is. But
I'm paraphrasing here a bit, where sometimes some attribution models assign credit by order of media exposure, some use it gets into some of the nuances.
Yeah, but our goal is just ambiguity, to eliminate those ambiguities. Yeah, and send it in. Yeah, that's the best way. In fact, that's our whole thing, our call for participation. So
in this space, right? It drives the business leaders crazy because a lot of times marketers will throw around business terms incorrectly, right?
So earlier today, they exactly triggered that, and I stepped forward 6 years ago, I think, on this one, because I think Larry used the term below the line. And I said, in my life as a finance guy supporting marketers, I can give you 10 different definitions of that based on 6 people I talked to. Some of them had multiple ones depending upon what the topic was.
yeah, I think they had to trace that one all the way back to some early P&G use. And
the definition talks about that.
This
It's a Procter and Gamble term.
Right.
This just reminds me of what's that movie with Ignacio Montoya, the sword guy? And he's like, I don't think you. The Princess Bride. I don't think you know what I don't think it means what you think it means. That's just going through my head for the past 30 minutes.
yeah. So anyway, that's what our process is. But if you look at that term and you think it's off, just let us know, and we'll take it back to the review board. So we welcome additional definition curators. So anyone in this room who would like to join the curating team, we'd more than love to have you. Again, subject matter experts on a variety of different topics in all fields of marketing, finance, and analytics. The input on terms, what's missing and what's outdated, which I think we've had some conversation on so far. And then promote the dictionary marketing term of the week on social media and otherwise. I mean, it's a great one for for professors. If you have students, undergraduate and graduate students, have them hook up to the marketing term of the week. It's fun just to get them to to talk about these terms, and may broaden it beyond what it is for their current semester class-wise, and show them the broader view of marketing. And I would like to say one last thing is that trust us, this team is engaging, dynamic, and fun. I mean, you build up some strong relationships with these teams, because you're in there butting heads on terms and all kinds of things, and but there's a lot of fun discussions that are had, and really some innovative thinking where people just don't agree, and then someone will just say, well, why don't we just completely throw this out, and we'll bring in this other structure to it. So a lot of innovative thinking. So really, if you have any love for words or things like that, we invite you to the team. So that's all we have, and we're happy to ask another question.
Read attribution, read the definition. They're both on the A page. The definition for attribution and above the line marketing, and it'll kind of give you a sense of how the team has nuanced some of it. They're two good examples.
A lot of times.
Move that camera.
A lot of times the conversation, just like we're having.
Move it up a little.
Trigger discussion at the last meeting we had, it's like we're having all these conversations about CMOs, and CMO addiction.
So sometimes there are obvious things
Like
done.
using the checking account as well.
Yeah.
It's not chief medical officer, thank you very much.
Right.
All right. well, thank you all, and we're going to move on to our next one.